In the near future, the Earth's environment was badly hurt. As the air got hotter, one problem after another hit the planet. Even germs that came out of the melting polar ice caused huge trouble for ocean life, killing off massive numbers of fish. Most nations were about to completely fall apart. In all this mess, a warlord named Johnny had complete control of Thailand. His wife had a weird sickness and needed frequent blood transfusions just to stay alive. One day, Johnny heard a rumor that having fresh fish liver could make his wife better. He was willing to try anything to help, so he spent a lot of money to set up a way to get live deep-sea fish. Fish had become super rare, so rare that even the poorest people risked their lives just for a fish head. Since it seemed wasteful for his wife to only eat the liver, Johnny told his assistant to also start a local business for fresh raw fish slices sashimi. When the first group of live deep-sea fish arrived, the assistant invited important rich people from different industries to a tasting party. In front of everyone, they ate pieces of the raw fish. Then all of a sudden his body started to shake wildly, and black blood came out of his mouth. His workers rushed him to the hospital for urgent treatment, but his life signs disappeared completely before they could even start surgery. An X-ray showed his blood vessels were full of weird foreign stuff. A little while after the doctors said he was dead, the assistant's body suddenly came back to life without any warning. Dr. Rin, the doctor looking after him, was talking about this strange situation with the hospital boss when two nurses suddenly ran in, desperately trying to get away from the revived assistant. To everyone's horror, the nurse who had been bitten quickly changed into a bloodthirsty monster within minutes, attacking her colleagues who were trying to escape. Chaos quickly took over the whole hospital. Quietly hiding in the storage room, Dr. Rin crouched down next to an injured patient. When she carefully moved towards the door to find an escape route, she suddenly realized the patient was gone. A terrible feeling washed over her as she looked around and saw the patient had turned into a zombie. Luckily, there were several rows of shelves between them, which let Rin slip away down the walkway. She thought she faintly heard her boyfriend calling her name. She became brave and calmed herself down, realizing the voice wasn't just in her head, it was coming from the radio communicator. To her surprise, her boyfriend had come to the hospital to save her. As it turned out, Rin's boyfriend Mark used to be a famous boxer. But when boxing became less popular, he started smuggling goods to make a living. The deep-sea fish that caused all the trouble were exactly the ones Mark and his partners had sneaked into the country. One day, while waiting for Rin to finish work at home, Mark heard an emergency message on the radio. The hospital where Rin worked had been shut down. Worried, Mark quickly went to the scene only to find soldiers making a tight circle around the hospital and not letting anyone enter. The confused and worried public gathered nearby. Suddenly, a nurse fell from the upper floors. As soldiers got close, the nurse unexpectedly attacked them fiercely. Even though she was shot dead quickly, one soldier had already been bitten. Mark had initially planned to sneak into the hospital when things got messy, but the soldiers started purposely gathering the crowd, telling everyone to meet in the hospital lobby. Security guard was faithfully keeping order until several people came running down the stairs. Before anyone could react, a zombie suddenly jumped into the lobby, roaring loudly, turning the whole first floor into a battleground. The zombie sickness spread fast through the hospital, and painful screams echoed from every floor. Mark immediately ran to the broadcasting room. Although he couldn't reach Rin, he managed to let her know that he had arrived. Using his great fighting skills, Mark quickly defeated several zombies blocking his way. Amidst the chaos, Mark saw a scared little boy surrounded by a growing number of zombies. Without thinking, Mark ran forward and quickly took out the zombies nearby. What started as a quick rescue soon became more important when Mark realized the boy knew Rin. The boy's mother, Culp's mother, was Rin's coworker. If Mark could find the boy's mother, he might figure out where Rin was. Thinking about it, Mark decided this was a better plan than just walking around with no direction. With the little boy leading him, Mark walked faster. They only briefly hid in rooms when the noise brought large groups of zombies. Mark saw for himself the hopelessness that made some people kill themselves, but his goal stayed firm. He was determined to rescue Rin from the hospital, no matter what. What Mark didn't know was that the military had sealed off the entire hospital. Anyone trying to escape, sick or not, would be shot immediately. The military leaders fully understood the horrible danger the zombie virus posed. To stop it from spreading more, they planned to blow up the whole hospital in only 30 minutes. Meanwhile, Dr. Rin was hiding with a few people who survived in the medical ward. She felt they couldn't stay there any longer, especially with her boyfriend's safety worrying her a lot. Gathering her courage, Rin left the ward to go to the security office, hoping to find Mark on the surveillance cameras. After quickly grabbing a key from a zombie, she unlocked the security room door. But she felt terrible when she saw the hallways were totally packed with zombies. There was no sign of Mark anywhere. As she quickly checked through the camera screens, she saw a surprising person in the intensive care unit. Rin didn't stop and ran towards the door only to find Johnny, the warlord, standing there. This was his wife's private, very isolated room, the most protected area in the hospital. Being smart, Rin immediately understood this was probably the safest place in the whole building. She asked Johnny what their next step was. Surely they couldn't just stay hidden forever. Johnny looked at his watch and said confidently, "We don't need to do anything. Someone will come to save us when the time is right." In fact, Johnny had a good reason to be so sure. When the military leaders found out that Johnny was trapped inside the hospital, they immediately put together their best special forces team. Their goal was clear. No matter the cost, they would get Johnny and his wife out alive. Soon after, a fully armed soldier quietly slipped into the hospital. the same time, the number of zombies inside the hospital was growing steadily. Mark had learned his lesson. Instead of trying to push his way through the stairs, he and Culp climbed the outside scaffolding. After getting to the third floor, they carefully avoided groups of zombies and finally found Culp's mother in the nursery. The emotional reunion between mother and son was full of hugs and relief, but the mother looked a little sad. She asked Mark to take care of Culp, suggesting she worried she wouldn't be able to survive with her son. Mark instantly understood what she meant. Learning that his girlfriend Rin was in the emergency room on the 5th floor, Mark pulled Culp away from the nursery with force. The woman had already been bitten by zombies. The little boy, not wanting to leave his mother, fought to get free, only to turn around and see that his mother had completely turned into a zombie. Realizing that staying was too dangerous, Mark quickly tore a piece of cloth and tied Culp to himself. Fighting his way through the crowd of zombies, he finally managed to escape the immediate danger. Meanwhile, Rin, who was still in the isolation room, got a new task. Johnny noticed that the blood bags keeping his wife alive were almost empty. As the doctor in charge, Rin felt she had to get more blood packs. Even though she knew the hallways were full of danger, she couldn't refuse. Gritting her teeth, she quietly slipped out of the isolation room. She ran into zombies almost every few steps, but slowly she figured out how they moved and managed to avoid them just in time. At the same time, Mark and Culp got to the 5th floor. After walking through several hallways, Mark spotted Rin's necklace lying on the ground. His heart raced, knowing she was close. Just as he looked up, he saw Rin quickly running into a room, barely escaping trouble. Surrounded by a never-ending group of zombies, Mark found himself with nowhere left to go. Filled with a rush of energy and determination, he let out a loud roar and charged right into the crowd. His only focus was finding Rin. His own safety didn't matter anymore. Not far away, in another hallway, a heavily armed Special Forces team had successfully broken into the hospital. They reached the isolation room where Johnny and his wife were. With Johnny and his wife safe in the middle, the team got ready to take them all the way to the rooftop helipad to be rescued by helicopter. But things went wrong when the doctor with them was bitten by a zombie. Johnny immediately thought of Rin. His wife desperately needed constant medical care, and now more than ever a doctor was vital. Meanwhile, Mark fought hard through the zombie crowd and finally made a path. Behind a glass barrier, his eyes met Rin's, their gaze full of desperate hope. But the sweet moment didn't last long. Mark suddenly saw a zombie charging toward Rin. Just in time, young Culp pulled the pin on a powder fire extinguisher, giving Rin a short but important break. Mark didn't hesitate. He burst into the room and smashed the attacking zombie into a bloody mess. The desperate couple finally reunited, but there was no time for hugs. They had to get out of the hospital first. Just as Mark stepped outside, a gunshot rang out and he fell to the ground. It turned out that a soldier looking for Rin had mistaken Mark for a sick person. Even after realizing their mistake, the soldiers felt no guilt. They were focused only on finding Rin and finishing their job as fast as possible. Wounded and on the floor, Mark's anger exploded. He forced himself up, let out a furious roar, and charged into the crowd. At this point, he had given up all reason. Anyone who was a danger to Rin, whether soldier or zombie, became his target. Surprisingly, the remaining squad leader was also a skilled fighter. The two fought fiercely, equally matched, until both fell down unconscious. Tragically, the squad leader's men had all been killed and turned into zombies. Meanwhile, Mark, looked after by his doctor girlfriend, quickly had his wounds treated and woke up. Unaware that the military planned to blow up the hospital, their only thought was to escape as fast as they could. As Mark and Rin shared a rare quiet moment, young Culp suddenly spotted trouble. The squad leader had turned into a zombie. Thinking quickly, Mark tricked the zombified leader into a room and threw several bottles of alcohol on the floor. With calm precision, he lit the fire and watched the flames spread quickly. Mark stayed calm, knowing the hospital had a fancy sprinkler system. Soon, streams of water poured down, putting out the fire. But to everyone's shock, the infected people who got soaked by the water went through a scary second change. Their limbs became faster and their teeth grew thicker and sharper. Turning a corner, Mark and the others unexpectedly ran into Johnny. After getting wet, Johnny's wife had also changed. Rin suspected her infection came from eating the fish liver. Yet Johnny stood still, allowing his zombified wife to bite him. At the same time, the other zombies in the hallway finished their changes, charging forward with merciless speed and quickly overwhelming Johnny. Mark and his group found themselves surrounded by these lightning-fast zombies. Unable to get away from them, Mark made the tough choice to stay behind and fight them off, urging Rin to take Culp and escape first. Mark fought to pull the zombies away, moving backward while battling them until he became trapped inside a car. Meanwhile, Rin managed to get to the rooftop, where a helicopter had come to pick her up. After hearing that Johnny had died, the soldiers reluctantly took Rin away first. Because Rin desperately insisted, the pilot agreed to wait an extra 5 minutes for Mark. But Mark was in deep trouble. Zombies surrounded and nearly buried the vehicle. Amidst the growls and snarls, the faint sound of a grenade's pin being pulled echoed through the chaos. Then came a huge explosion that blew the zombies into pieces. Thanks to careful planning, Mark barely escaped. Unfortunately, the loud blast brought even more zombies. Using every bit of his strength, Mark barely made it to the rooftop helipad. Yet with the hordes getting closer, he knew he had to stay behind and hold them off. Inside the helicopter, Rin was crying hard but couldn't change Mark's fate. Watching her fly away, Mark showed a calm smile. Knowing his girlfriend was safe, he felt some peace despite the huge battle ahead. Just as Mark got ready to fight the zombies to the death, the military's timed explosives went off. A towering fire engulfed the entire hospital, wiping out Mark and the countless zombies in a cloud of smoke and flame. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you like the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.